for you all to jump into this final workshop. We've got a lot to cover this evening. We've got an amazing guest speaker for you this evening. I think you're going to really enjoy this. Now, this workshop is all about how to make the most out of that first internship. How do you make the most of that first internship or first job? Maybe you're jumping into a full-time job, you're a senior, you're graduating. Maybe you're hopefully jumping into an internship. Even if you're not jumping into an internship, maybe you're working on a part-time job that you want to make the most out of for the summer. That's okay too. This workshop is all about how can you make the most out of that first opportunity over the summer so that you can really set yourself apart. By the way, if you have a part-time job and you don't have an internship, there are plenty of ways that you can go about setting yourself apart in that part-time job that could lead to internships down the road. Seriously, do not settle and do not sell yourself short for the network that you could create from any particular opportunity. I know that I could tell you that back in the day when I was a server and bartender, I met plenty of people that ultimately opened up doors for opportunities that I ended up taking advantage of later. You never know who you will meet, even in the jobs you think are not your main thing. It's understandable, but leverage it. Don't ever write any potential connection off. So, as you all know, my name's Garrett. I'm the founder of Ambition in Motion. This workshop's going to be about 50 minutes long. Please ask any questions you have. If you have any questions in the comments section, as you all know, I'm gonna ask 3 questions during the duration of this workshop. Your job is to answer them within 24 hours of this workshop going live. I don't necessarily know exactly what the questions are going to be. I always prompt them based on our guest speaker. Sometimes I'll slip in an intro question during this segment here. It just depends how I'm feeling for the day. So I'm so excited for you all to jump in, learn from our guest this evening. I'm so excited to learn your answers to the questions that we asked you, and I'm so excited to engage with you all. Now, I really want to set the expectations. As you all know, you're not going to get an internship handed to you on a silver platter. That's just not how this program works. Now, by the way, have students landed opportunities at Google, major investment banks, major engineering firms, major marketing firms? Absolutely. Happens all the time. And have they done that as a result of meeting with their mentor, taking advantage of the things that they've learned through this program? Yeah, absolutely. But if you think this is going to get handed to you on a silver platter, I think you already know by now that's just not how this program works. You have to work for the things that you get. Now, this platform can be a springboard for you to get to where you want to be. Leverage this as an opportunity to really launch your early career path. Absolutely, yes. This is something that can really do make a huge impact on you getting to where you want to be. But this is not a handout. This is not something that is just given to you. And especially in this time period that we're living in with the crazy coronavirus going on and all these other things going on where work is potentially unsure of, this program could be critical to you really setting yourself apart compared to your peers. Take advantage of it. I really think that you're going to enjoy what we have to say in this workshop this evening. Now, I really want to talk about the intentionality of feelings, because here's the thing. At the end of the day, how you make someone feel in a given moment is going to really impact how they feel about you down the line. So I want you to just take a quick moment on a piece of paper or on your phone. I want you to identify, how do you want other people to feel about you? So when you're going into that first job, that first internship, that first part-time job, how do you want your boss? How do you want your colleagues? How do you want your peers? How do you want other people to feel about you? Write it in the comment section. Write it down on a piece of paper. I want to know, how do you want other people to feel about you? Because that intentionality is so key. It is so key, because here's the thing. If you don't write this down, if you don't set out an intention for how you want other people to feel about you, they are going to perceive you in any which way that you may feel on that given day. And that could be a good thing. It could be a bad thing. If you're having an off day and you're thinking to yourself like, oh man, like, I'm having a rough day, you can let that spew onto other people. It happens all the time. And people come up with excuses for it. You might say, hey, my dog died earlier today, or I just found out my grandma's got cancer, having a rough day. And don't get me wrong, there's not an excuse for having a rough day, but you've got to be able to realize that as a professional, you've got to put on multiple different hats to get yourself in the zone to make the most out of it. So no matter what's going on with your world, you can't let your personal world affect your business world. And if you do, it's going to potentially negatively impact the way that other people feel about you. But if you set an intention right now about how you want other people to feel about you, you're going to put yourself in a much better situation. If you think to yourself, I want people to think about me as dependable and reliable and someone that's always upbeat, confident, and excited when it comes to work. It doesn't matter what's going on with your outside world. Even if the worst thing could have possibly happened in your outside personal world, if you set yourself an intention right now that that's how you want other people to feel about you, when you come into work, you're going to straighten yourself up because you've already identified, I don't want people to feel sad, bad, or like that I'm a charity case because I've got other things going on in my outside world. You want other people to feel like you are a rock, that you are someone that they can go to, that you are someone that's always showing up professionally. Boom. You will get yourself into the mindset ready to be successful. Now that leads to the 3 keys that we cover in every workshop for success in this mentor program, which is strategy, story, and state. And as I just said, it doesn't matter what's going on in your outside world. It doesn't matter what the state of the world is. If you are a rock, if you are someone that physically comes into a state conducive for being successful every single time, you will be successful. I promise you that. So what I want to do right now is I want to get you into a state conducive for being successful. I want you to stand up, and I want you to shake it loose. I want you to shimmy it out. I want you to let it go. I want you to scream at the top of your lungs. On the count of 30, scream 1, 2, 3. Yeah! Just let it out. Let it loose. Let it go. You're getting yourself pumping. You're getting blood flowing to your brain. You're releasing endorphins. You're getting yourself ready to be successful. The reason why that is so key is because no matter what is going on in your world, you can drive your emotions with your motions. Your motions drive your emotions, meaning that if you get out, you move, you do a power pose, you get crazy, you can get yourself in a state conducive for other people wanting to be around you. You can get yourself feeling good, even if you don't want to feel good. Even if you think to yourself, I just want to remorse for a little bit. I just want to be sad for a little bit. You can be sad on your own time, but when it comes to work time, you step your game up. And the way that you step your game up is you get your emotions and you turn them into positive emotions. I can tell you that right now. Even when you don't want to feel on your best self, your emotions can get yourself into an emotional state conducive for being successful, even if it's only for a temporary period of time. I promise you, your emotions, getting moving, getting running, getting going, getting just shaken out, will get yourself successful. And that will be a huge catalyst for you being successful on the job, standing apart from other people. Because everyone else is going to wonder, like, man, how are you able to stay upbeat, positive, just like a go-to person every single time while other people are taking sick days or just having off days? And you can tell, everyone can tell. It's because you are making an intention to be that way before you come into work every single day. It's critical. Now, the next key is your story. What's the story you tell yourself? Now, that's a big point of the intentionality. What is the story you tell yourself for why you're going to be successful? If you tell yourself a negative story like, hey, you know what? I don't deserve to be here. I'm not qualified. I'm just honestly, I don't even know why I'm in the room. If that's a story you tell yourself, that is the outcome that will be perceived by other people. But if you tell yourself a story, man, I can do this, I can make an impact, I can learn from these people, I can engage, I can be the energetic person who does what it takes, works the hardest to get to where I need to be. If you come in with that mentality, you can be successful. Now, the last key is your strategy. What are you going to do to make sure that you set yourself apart from your peers? Now, there's a few things that we talk about with our guest speaker, but there's a few things that I would love to discuss with you right now. The first one is what is focal is causal. This is popularized by the work of Dr. Robert Cialdini. Essentially, what it means is that whatever is seen is perceived, which means that it is all optics. By that, I mean, if your supervisor, if your boss, if your CEO sees you showing up early for work, working hard on projects, taking initiative, they will attribute the success of the entire intern team to you. But if they see you on your phone, on social media, doing something lazy, just doing things that are not, like spreading gossip at the water cooler, not working when you should be working, anything that could be perceived as negative, if they see that, they will perceive that just as likely as they do the hardworking stuff. So it is really critical that whatever people see about you, whoever you want to make sure that you impress, that they see the type of person that you want to portray, and that they do not see the type of person you do not want to portray. You will think to yourself, man, I wonder how does XYZ person get promoted over another person? I can tell you how. It's that they are seen doing good work while the other people are not seen doing good work. Make sure that you're seen doing good work. In fact, what I always find the most interesting about this research of Dr. Robert Cialdini is its extrapolation to other areas of life. specifically as, you know, I don't know if any of you all are holed up right now for coronavirus and sitting inside watching television, but what he's observed in his research is that when cameras, especially in police interrogations, are facing any particular person, whether that be the police officer or the suspect, when the camera is facing the person, one particular person, a jury is much more likely to attribute negative feelings towards that person if the camera is facing them. So if the camera is facing a suspect in an interrogation, the jury is much more likely to attribute guilt on the party of the suspect than they are to think that the cop is asking leading questions, trying to get an answer that may not actually exist. However, flip it around. When the camera is facing the police officer, not the suspect, the likelihood that the jury is going to think that the cop, the police officer, is asking leading questions, trying to get an answer that may not actually be essentially the guilt of the person who's under interrogation, it essentially increases substantially more. The point I'm trying to make is that when what people see is what they perceive. So at the end of the day, if God forbid you're ever in a police interrogation situation and you notice that the camera is rolling, at the best you want to make sure that the camera is side by side equally to you both, or not facing you and facing the police officer. It's crazy how much of an impact that has on how people perceive other people. But more importantly, as it pertains to the workplace, make sure that people see you doing good work and not see you doing bad work. It's not a tit for tat type of thing. One bad deed is about 10 good deeds worth. You have to really, really make sure that you're not seen doing anything bad, or you are going to be on the shit list of your supervisor. And that's not a place you want to be. So the next thing that I want to talk about is this theory called the next in line theory. Essentially what this says is that when somebody is talking or about to speak, their likelihood of retaining any information before or after their speech is very low. So if you know that your supervisor is about to give a presentation, or someone that you really look up to, maybe you are about to see a keynote speaker, you're thinking to yourself, I love this keynote speaker, I love what he or she has to say, I want to go up to him or her after their speech. Bad idea. Here's why. People, when they speak, are much more likely to think about what they just said if they just finished giving a speech, or what they're about to say if they're about to give a speech. Their likelihood of retaining any new information is very minimal. So therefore, you need to give the person you're trying to make a positive impression to a leeway period before you bring up new information to them, because that will increase the likelihood that your message is actually going to resonate in their mind. But if you come up to them right before a speech or right after a speech that they just gave or are about to give, their likelihood of remembering what you said, very low. So just something to keep in mind. This also applies to a boss who's giving a speech, any colleague that's giving a speech, anybody who's about to speak publicly for anything. Make sure you don't talk to them immediately before or afterwards, because they're not going to remember what you said. So the last thing that I want to touch on is this concept called matching and mirroring. This is a great key for building rapport in the workplace, especially for someone who's got negative body language. So I think we've touched on this before in the past, but you should not have your arms crossed when you're at the workplace. It conveys that you're closed off and that you're not open to learning new information. But there's a lot of people that have bad body language in the workplace. There's going to be a lot of people that will cross their arms to you. Can you cross back? The answer is yes. And I know this might sound crazy, but people feel a subconscious connection to others that they are similar to. And this can be in your mannerisms and your speed of speech. Not your dialect of speech, but your speed of speech. So if somebody has a very thick Southern accent and you try to emulate that Southern accent, but you don't actually have a Southern accent, they're going to sniff that out immediately. It's going to be perceived as inauthentic. But if someone's talking really quickly and you're saying, I'm going to work on that, boss, I'm going to make sure I get that done, I'm going to work on it right away, they're going to think to themselves like, man, here's a sense of urgency, someone who's really with it. That's awesome. But instead, if you respond by saying, yeah, boss, I will get to it, and I will make sure that I get those assignments complete, they're going to be thinking to themselves, what the heck is wrong with this kid? Like, what does he not like get it? The sense of urgency? It's crazy how your speed of speech is actually perceived so similar together. So if you notice that someone talks really quickly or really slowly, following their speed of speech, matching and mirroring their speed of speech can actually help you build rapport with them. The other key is other body language. So like I said, crossing your arms. If someone's playing with their chin, you can play with your chin. Don't try to be overly obvious about it, but you can do it subtly. So if someone's playing with their ear, you can play with your ear. And I know it may sound crazy, but you can try this with a friend who's never heard this before. Go up to them, see if they've got any mannerisms. Maybe they're using their hands like this a lot. Emulate those hand gestures, and then all of a sudden introduce a new gesture. All of a sudden, maybe start playing with your nose. It could be any gesture, honestly. Start playing with your nose. Do it. First, emulate their hand gestures for about 5 minutes. Then introduce a new gesture. Watch what happens. They're going to start playing with their nose. They're going to start emulating the new gesture that you have now introduced. It's crazy. It's fascinating how it works, but it builds rapport between other people in the work environment. I think those are some really critical tips for you to know. The last thing that I want to leave you with is the 30 and 90-day rule. The 30-day rule is for an internship. When you first get into an internship, this is, by the way, a Fortune 500 CEO taught me this tip, and that was when you first go into an internship, meet with your supervisor and ask him or her the question, what did the best intern you ever have do to set themselves apart? On the very first day, ask that question. They're going to tell you exactly what they want you to do to set yourself apart. For the next 30 days, go ahead and do it. Don't complain. Don't ask questions. Don't share any professional goals you've got for yourself. Just go ahead, put your head down, work hard. After 30 days, you have built credibility with this person. You can then say, hey, boss, would you be open to having a conversation? I would love to share with you some of my professional goals. Boom. That's where you share some of your professional goals. That's where you say, hey, I'm interested in connecting with people in these areas or these types of fields or these types of industries. And because you've earned credibility, they will help you get there. Why? Because you've earned that credibility. But if on day one you ask for that and you've earned no credibility, they're not going to do it. Or if they do, they're going to only do it on a light version. You're not going to get the full force of how they could possibly help connect you. That is something that's really critical. 90-day rule is the exact same thing, but for a full-time job. You get a little bit longer to really build that credibility with your supervisor and your employer. So those are key tips. The last thing I want to just really mention is really starting to help you get into a routine. I know that the best way to learn anything is to actually teach it. So what I want you to do is I want you to find somebody. This could be a friend. It could be a peer. It could be a classmate. It could be anybody. Teach them something that you learned in this program. Teach them anything you learned in this program. We know that students who tell at least, we know that students who tell at least 20 people something that they learned in this program, that their likelihood of landing the job, the internship, getting to a graduate degree increases exponentially. We know that the more people a student tells, the more likely they're able to do that. What we've identified as 20 is that magic number. And this doesn't necessarily have to be you teaching them a full seminar of anything we taught. It could be literally you bringing up casually in conversation, like, hey, I learned about this thing called matching and mirroring. It's really fascinating. Boom, that's it. That's one person. Or multiple people if you're in a group. But what we've learned is that the more people you tell, the more likely you are actually going to retain this information, the more likely you are going to actually apply it into your professional life, and the more likely you are actually to achieve the goals you have set for yourself professionally. It's crazy how it works. It's a network effect. It really does make an impact. So I want to challenge you that after this workshop, you go out, you identify a friend, you teach them something you learned in this program, and its likelihood of sticking increases exponentially. I really want to challenge you to do that. This is our final workshop. I'm really excited for what you are able to accomplish over the summer. I would really encourage you to be in the program next semester. You're going to get a new mentor. We're going to have new speakers. We're going to talk about new content. I think you're going to really enjoy it and really springboard your career into another level. I think you're going to really enjoy that. Thank you all for being here. Have a wonderful rest of this workshop.
Everyone, welcome to our fourth and final workshop of the semester. I'm so excited to dive into our topic today. Our topic is how to prepare for that first job or internship. Ultimately, as college students, you are going through this internship. So maybe you've already identified your internship and you know exactly what you want to do. These skills, these insights, these tips that we're going to share with you today can be really helpful for you making the most of that first internship if you've already landed it. And even if you've not landed that first job or internship yet, this will be a great tip and guidance on how to go about achieving that. Ultimately, what we recognize is that this first job may very well likely not be your last job professionally. And so how we treat people, what we do to stand out can be really impactful in terms of how it opens doors for our next opportunities. Fortunately, we've got a great leader with us here today. We've got Suzanne Grover. Suzanne is a great leader. And Suzanne, thanks for being here.
Oh, I'm really happy to be here, Garrett. I have a real passion for this time in people's careers, and I'm just happy to share any tips I can.
You know, I think a lot of students feel like their career is very linear. Like, oh, I get a degree in marketing, or I get a degree in mechanical engineering, or I get a degree in finance or whatever. And it's just like naturally goes off in this straight line. In your experience, both for your own experiences, but also for most professionals you interact with, would you say it's as linear as maybe a college student may think?
No, hardly ever, as a matter of fact. One of the things I did was I was very chaotic in the way I looked at internships in the career path I chose. I interned for state senators. I interned at a law firm. I interned at a manufacturing plant sharpening knives, and I ended up in insurance. But I learned something in each of those internships that I've been able to transfer as a skill throughout my career. And I think further into your career, even with your first job, it's this concept of career lattice and kind of moving across and then up and then way up and then sort of taking a step back for something and then back over is very freeing. But you've got to keep your mind open and your eyes open for opportunities all the time as a result.
Yeah, I love that. And I also think like one thing you're kind of alluding to is just the power of staying connected with those that you're working with, because you have no idea where they're going to go professionally and you have no idea where you're going to go professionally. I think there's this big notion. I think as a college student, you could get away with having like a very high GPA, being a wallflower, not interacting with anybody, not really going to class, and still be getting this 4.0 GPA. Like that is possible in college. From a professional realm standpoint, it's not going to help you if you're not interacting with other people. Even if you do good work, that's not what gets you promoted. What gets you promoted is oftentimes the people you interact with and their relationship with you. And so, I would be curious to know, one, what did you study when you were in college? What made you want to take all those internships? What made you want to get all those experiences?
I knew I wanted to get all the experiences. So I was a business major. I was a management and marketing major. But at the time, I thought I was pre-law. Took the LSAT, was like ready to go. And then one day woke up and in no way wanted to go to law school. So because I'd had some other opportunities and the people I'd met in this specific one was the Senate internship, but people I'd met through my sorority and through some of the other things I did in college, that's how I landed my first job. It was with a major insurance carrier, kind of fell into life insurance underwriting. And, I've had some side quests since, but that's why that I was very intentional about this would be really neat for me to kind of learn in the state senator internship. This would be a really, really good way for me to kind of learn how this part of the system works if I do decide to be an attorney. The manufacturing role was, I felt like I was kind of deficient in operations. It was really scary to me. The knives weren't scary, but the operations piece was. And so this was a really kind of safe way for me to feel like I could round that skill out a little bit. The law firm obviously was an obvious choice for someone who was pre-law. But again, ultimately, it was the networking. It was learning how to be collaborative, even in environments that might not lend itself to be collaborative. Those were the kind of transferable skill sets I've been able to use my entire career and on into my executive leadership journey.
When you landed those early jobs and internships, what was a factor about the work that you didn't think would be a big factor to you in terms of whether or not you liked that job or that internship? What turned out to be a surprisingly really critical factor to your enjoyment of that work that maybe coming in you didn't really even think about?
Yeah. I'll talk a little bit about my first job. Life insurance underwriting, believe it or not, Garrett, it's not that sexy. I was like, hey, listen, I'm going to learn this skill and then I'll kind of bounce and do something else, right? But and this would be advice I'd have for anybody listening to this: talk to everyone, join the cross-departmental, cross-team initiatives, because that is where, for me, the real learning was. Did I learn how to spell diabetes? Yes, I did. I was a very good underwriter, but the actual skills I learned were much more in being able to see the company holistically, being able to know why underwriting worked with investments, why actuaries worked with investments, and how the company actually made money. And it's about knowing people kind of across those departments. I worked in a little thing called Partners in Education, which had nothing to do with anything. I was not a teacher, not in education. This is insurance. But the people I met across marketing and agency and investments ultimately were kind of where I ended up going back and getting my MBA. But through those contacts, get a mentor, because the more people you know, the better sense you have of not only the culture of that organization, but also how this organization makes money, and as a result, how you can individually add more value.
I want to talk about underwriting for a second because I feel like I had a lot of friends in college who studied actuarial sciences and underwriting and all that sort of fun stuff. And almost every single one of them got into the insurance space, and all of the insurance companies said, whoa, 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 whoa. You don't do any actuarial sciences or underwriting. You got to cut your teeth first and start making some sales, and then we'll consider putting you in the underwriting room. And what's fascinating about your story is like you came in not really studying actuarial sciences or underwriting, and you were plucked in and dropped into this space of underwriting. How, like, what made the organization want to give you a chance to do that, and how did you go about like falling in love with this concept in this type of work?
Yes, I was homegrown in underwriting. And why did the company want to do that? I think that I exhibited, both with the things I'd done in university and in these internships, a very clear desire to add value and a desire to learn and positivity, right? And so I think companies really look for people like that. You can check a box. A lot of us, especially when we were coming out of graduate school. I mean, I went to a top 20 program at UT Austin for my MBA. All of us can follow money through a P&L. All of us can, do some business calculus should we be called upon, God forbid. But I think what I look for is somebody who can be a cultural fit that I can put somewhere and have them learn that role, but then be able to move them throughout their career should they want to be developed in a different way. It is no longer enough to just say, okay, well, I'm going to become a life insurance underwriter and I will just raise myself through those ranks. It's just very rare to see that happen anymore. Companies are looking for transferable skills. And so that's what you have to be able to articulate through your work history and or through the interview, as your career progresses.
You talk about this really important component of coming in excited. And really, it also, I would imagine, it's this concept of being excited and curious at the same time. I would imagine who you're excited in front of also plays a role too. Like, I don't know. It's like I'm a big fan of Robert Cialdini's. He wrote a book called Persuasion, and one of the things he talks about is this concept of like what is focal is causal, meaning what people see is what they perceive. If like the head boss of your organization sees you on your phone playing Candy Crush or whatever, that boss is going to formulate a thought about you, whether it be good or bad or otherwise. Like that's going to be the thing that's seared in their brain. But if at the same time you're the person who's coming in excited, wanting to learn more, showing curiosity, that communicates a very different message as well. And so, when you were in that first job, that first internship, were you intentional, or like did you think about like who were the people that you were most curious to when it came to the work itself, or did that not really play a role in it?
A little bit of both, right? So I think looking back, and I don't know that I knew this at 21 when I started my first like big girl, actual career job out of college. I don't know that I could have identified correctly who the important people were. Obviously, you want your leader and maybe your leaders, to know. But the people who ended up being really fundamental to my career came out of these kind of initiatives I did otherwise, right? And one of the things I did, this is the intentionality part. I would stress to all of our viewers, do not be afraid or intimidated to speak to people, the executives. Most of those people, they're also humans. If they're good leaders, they want to find and develop the next set of talent. I walked up to kind of intentional, sort of because I had that, bravado of a 21-year-old. We had a board of directors come down. This is a Fortune 100 company. A board of directors member came down and was kind of speaking to, the all of the employees. And I got in line afterwards, and I was probably 5 rungs down from anybody else in this line, but just bebopped up there and said, I have an idea. I don't think this company is marketing well to my customer segment, and I think you should be. And he said, give me a call. And I ended up working with corporate on a fairly large kind of marketing focus group of young professionals at the time. I would have never gotten that opportunity had I not been intentional about, okay, this is somebody I want to ask questions of, I want to understand more of, and also I happen to have an opinion here. But that kind of curiosity and not letting anybody be beneath you, right? Every admin I've ever had has in some way enhanced that role or another role, because you never ever do know who's going to be where at any given time. I am now in a role where I work with people that have worked for me in the past and I'm their client, or that I need something from in a manner that they were a peer, they worked for me, with me as a partner, and those relationships come back positively or negatively, certainly.
I love that. So let me ask the students a question real quick. What can you do to reach out the CEO of either your current company or your upcoming company? And it doesn't have to be the CEO, it could be an executive, someone pretty high up in your organization, to stand apart. Is there a town hall? Is there something? And then at that, what can you do to really set yourself apart? Standing in line, asking a question, giving a suggestion, whatever it may be, having an opinion about something. What are you willing to commit to? Post in the comment section. I'd love to learn what you want to do to help yourself stand apart. Because Suzanne, I love that story. I think what you share is such a powerful message, and just you don't get what you don't ask for.
Yes.
And if you don't put yourself out there, no one's going to randomly discover you. Like, it just doesn't work that way. If you don't advocate for yourself, it just doesn't happen. It's not like this isn't a Star is Born. It's like a star is created by advocating for themselves and putting themselves out there.
Yeah, that concept of career advocacy is so important, and getting it right now. And this is when to do it. First jobs, internships, learning how to advocate for yourself. And you don't have to be a bull in a china shop about it, but doing things like being solution focused. If there's a problem, bring that problem to an executive or someone or a mentor, but come with a solution that you think might work. Maybe not. Maybe you don't have the expertise in that field, company, whatever yet. But if they see you being solution focused and you're not just bringing problems to them, that is a really large indicator that this is someone they want to watch, this is someone they want to work with, and that this is someone they could put on a committee or on a project that would help, move the project forward.
Oh, I love that. Yeah, I think you're right. I think within that, there are some students that we encounter where they're like, oh, I want to make sure my resume is perfect before I reach out to my mentor. I want to make sure like my grades are perfect before I reach out to my mentor. I want to make sure that I've got 10 interviews lined up before I reach out to my mentor. And, I said ambition emotional, like just launch, baby, launch, just get yourself out there. Like at the end of the day, your mentor's not going to judge you. Just get going. Cause like, there's never going to be a perfect time. Just get started. What can students do to overcome this fear of failure or perfectionism?
Yeah. So this is going to sound really pithy, but I tell it to my staff all the time, which is be comfortable being uncomfortable. I think one of the main ways that we can set ourselves apart, particularly early in our career, but this is for anyone at any time in their career. If you can learn to fail forward with grace, if you will, those are people those are standout moments. If you can come to someone and take accountability, you made a mistake. I don't care if you accidentally cut too far in someone's brain. I mean, that would be less than optimal, but, or you broke a product, or, you made a financial error, right? Taking accountability, trying to make it as right as you can, and being able to articulate what you learned from that is so much more important, and it is so much more memorable than just, Garrett made a mistake, Suzanne, flubbed a number. Those are the pieces that I remember in my career the best. They are the things that I remember the most about the people I've promoted. The best was these people who were able to take, a learning from it, and they're able to articulate it to me. And that accountability piece is a sink or swim.
100%. And what it does is it shows that you care and that you're able to learn.
Yeah,
Like, by the way, there are some cultures, unfortunately, that are not great at accountability, where there's a lot of finger pointing and blame gaming and all that sort of fun stuff. And just because other people do it is not a excuse for you to do it either.
that's correct. Yeah,
Also, at the end of the day, like, failure is going to be your best teacher. You're junior in your career, you're just graduating college. It's okay. Like, people expect you to make mistakes. And in fact, I would even care to go as far to say that those people who are willing to put themselves out on a limb to make mistakes are the ones who will eventually discover some lightning in a bottle because they gave it a shot, and are more likely to fast track themselves up the career ladder than someone who's only playing it safe, only come in just to do the things that I'm asked to do. Don't go out there. Don't try to, be a part of this employee resource group or be a part of, different aspects of the organization because I want to stick to my lane or whatever. Like, no, you're going to follow a very standard career trajectory from that. And it's only on you if you wake up 15 years later and frustrated with where you're at professionally because you're like, didn't advocate for yourself. You didn't put yourself out there. So I guess what I'm trying to say is, like, I don't know, you are in control of your own destiny. And, the question you got to ask yourself is, what is failure to you? Is failure to you getting fired, or is failure to you not moving up the professional ladder because you never put yourself out there to give yourself a chance to be promoted or develop as a professional?
You're so right, Garrett. And I think that concept of, because all of us have made mistakes to varying degrees, um, people seeing you make it, own it, learn from it, it makes you so much more relatable. And I think that this relatability and this concept of kind of likability and, being able to kind of navigate in your career like that is also a really, really important skill that we shouldn't underestimate.
Let me ask the students a question real quick. Where do you want to be in 5 years? Post in the comment section. And then, as like an add-on to this question, what are you going to do that's unique or different from every other young professional that's entering the workforce that's going to help you stand out? Post in the comments. I'd love to learn more. Where do you want to be in 5 years, and what are you willing to do that's different from everybody else? It's going to be unique, like truly unique. I don't want to hear like a bland answer of like, oh, I'm going to perform my basic job duties and get them all completed. Like, yeah, no shit, Sherlock. Of course you're going to do that. Like, what I'm looking for is something unique, something like, I'm going to talk to my CEO. I'm going to ask for feedback. I'm going to put myself out there. So speaking of which, Suzanne, my next question is, what is the best way to ask for feedback from your boss? I think that's something that, like, we don't think about often enough. We just think like it's naturally supposed to happen to us at the performance review. But if that happens only once a year, maybe twice a year, like, that's not enough feedback. Is there a suggestion you have for a young professional to ask for feedback from their boss?
Yeah, again, this goes so much back to career advocacy, and I wish more organizations taught it intentionally. But I think feedback is a gift. And the best way to utilize it is to make it easy for your leader or whomever you're trying to get the feedback from to give it to you. So make sure that you're modeling when they give you feedback, accept it. They're not doing this to you, right? They're doing this for you. So be able to come back and articulate how you took their feedback and used it. We're all humans, so we like our advice being taken. So if someone says, Suzanne, you need to be more assertive, I need to be able to come back and say, here's how I used that. I spoke up in this meeting that I was really a little bit intimidated to. I really, really want to thank you for that feedback, because I've been really conscious of trying to work that into my everyday sort of dynamic better. I think also just be sure you are coming prepared to your one-on-ones, to any kind of meetings with your mentors where there is feedback. What is your agenda? What do you need feedback on? Ask very specific questions about, when you saw me in this meeting, is there a way I should have phrased the question differently, floated an idea differently? Make it easy for people to give you not only feedback, but the targeted feedback that you're wanting. And just please remain open. It is a humbling experience sometimes to receive feedback, but it is the most important, I think, aspect to growth.
And people aren't giving you feedback because they want to bring you down. They're giving you feedback because they want to build you up. If they didn't care, they'd have zero feedback for you. And I love your advice on being specific with it because that is something that's so critical. Um, like saying like, hey, in this meeting I was really trying to come off as this. Did that come off the way I was hoping to? Or hey, how did you perceive me or perceive this work result that I sent over to you? Like, was it fine? Could there have been things that were better? Proactively asking for that feedback I think is so critical, because the worst thing, and this by the way sometimes does happen, is you get into a work environment where someone's got no feedback for you. They don't give you any feedback whatsoever. And then you get to the performance review and you're thinking to yourself like, ooh, I'm about to get that big bonus, baby. And they're like, meets expectations, doesn't exceed it, standard bonus, average. And you're like, whoa, whoa, whoa. You've never told me that I was just meeting expectations. Like, I thought I was crushing it. And it's like, they just never gave you that feedback.
Yeah,
And unless
unfortunately,
you're really proactive and specific about it, there are some people and some managers who just don't. Not to say it's right or wrong, but if you want to advocate for your own career, you're the one who's going to have to put that in your own court, in your own pocket.
and I think this is a place practice makes perfect, Garrett. I think, if that seems intimidating to you, right? Practice with your spouse, your friends that are real mirrors for you, not your yes friends, not the ones who are just there to cheerlead, which those are important too. Really practice with people in your personal life. Getting and receiving and giving feedback, right? Practice with your cat, but that kind of just getting used to fixing your face when people are giving you like kind of, wow, that was not what I expected to have come out of their mouth. I think it makes that a lot easier to go into meetings like that with confidence, and you start being able to refine, what do I really need to know? What questions do I need to ask?
No, I love that. I think that makes sense. Suzanne, one other question I have here, and this pertains to toxic working environments. And I think for a student, obviously, if this is your first job, it might be hard to decipher if you are, in fact, in a toxic working environment. It's like, there's some people I talk to, young professionals, where they're like, they don't cater in lunch and they don't have a corporate ping pong table. I am leaving. And you're like, okay, cool.
Nice for them.
Like, you know, yes, they might not have a corporate ping pong table, and no, they might not have a stipend for providing you lunches at work, but is your boss treating you with your respect? Like, there's a lot of other things that come into identifying whether or not a culture is toxic. On the flip side, you could have a very toxic work environment where it's really passive aggressive, it's people being negative or overly positive to your face, but then like when it comes to actual feedback or performance reviews, it's like scathing and not helpful whatsoever. There are definitely toxic work environments, and even more toxic things like people, behaving badly in the workplace. Mm-hmm. How can a young professional take a toxic work environment and turn it into a positive?
Well, I'm an expert here, as I was in a sorority. So I think there's a couple of things. First, be very observant. Be very observant when you take the role and try to identify what is the toxicity, because to your point, it can be not really toxic. There's just a perception there from what you need versus very toxic, and everything on the spectrum in between. I've been in a lot of roles where my immediate leader was toxic, but the company itself was fantastic. That's one of the reasons I'll go back to join these cross-team, cross-departmental, intra-company things, because it's going to give you a much higher level perspective on, is this toxic or not toxic? What do I really need to get away from? So if it's a leader situation, that's going to be handled differently. But what I will say, regardless of source of toxicity, would be try very hard to stay above it. Always be intentional about articulating what you are about, what you are learning and want to learn, what you are bringing to the table in terms of value, and not what someone else is not doing wrong, being mean about. You can phrase them as some obstacles I've faced, but that positivity will get noticed. That doesn't necessarily mean you do not need an exit strategy. And that's really going to depend on, is this leader-based, is this team-based, or is this entire company just one big dumpster fire? But I think that the more people you have in different places in the organization, and also just trying to build a reputation for yourself as trying to be about solutions, even when your business realities may not run current to that cause. Those are kind of the best things you can do in the interim. I mean, we've all been there. Everybody can see it, you know.
You know, you bring up so many great points about this. There, one other type of toxicity that is maybe not always most evident to the keen eye is the director level boss who is creating a team, B team sort of situation. When I say something like that, I mean, to you and your team, let's say you report to this director, let's say you're in customer support, let's just say, I don't know, you're a customer support representative, you got a director of customer support, and this leader says, oh, it's us versus the world, we got this, the finance team sucks, the HR team sucks, the operations team sucks, we are going to go out and make it all happen. And what you don't realize is that when you see something like that happen, you're almost like on the Titanic. You're on a losing ship. You're on a ship that's going down because your boss is taking you down with you, but you don't realize it because your boss is insulating you from everything else within the organization. And so, Suzanne, you bring up this really great point of creating intra-departmental collaborations and connections, because you might wake up one day and all of a sudden that director of customer success is like fired and a new director of customer success is brought in, maybe from another team, and has told everybody that the way you've been doing things are wrong and it needs to be rapidly changed. And you're like, oh, wow, like what's going on here? And it's just frustrating. That's like a level of toxicity where, yeah, you're almost shielded from it, but having those intra-connectedness points across an organization is really critical. So let me ask the students a question real quick. What can you do to create intra-departmental connections across your organization, especially if there isn't a formal system set up in place? What can you do to be proactive about that? Post in the comment section. Suzanne, yeah, so what were you going to say?
Oh, there's so much to say about toxicity. I also think, well, first of all, every organization and internship I've ever been in, if you stick around long enough, the leadership changes. So I think that that's really, really important. You know, there is such a thing as a long game for some of this. I would encourage you, especially if you're new to the organization, assume a positive intent. So here's what I will say. These are humans that are in these leadership positions. Now, could some of them honestly have it out for you? You know, Garrett, you're my leader and I look like your ex-girlfriend. And so it is just an unfair, toxic thing. Sure. Right. But most managers, it's a lack of talent or experience. It's not because they're doing something to you. And I think it's really easy as humans to get to fall in that trap sometimes. So I think I cannot emphasize the power of observation and the power of kind of these mirrors from other people who, you know, are observing the same thing. I think that's a really, really important piece that I've just seen some really bad managers. They weren't mean. They weren't actually toxic. But for instance, one of the companies I worked for before, I was the vice president of operations. And when I left, the person who took that role only had customer, like call center experience. Well, now this person was over 10 different departments, most of which he didn't know anything about. It is very human nature. It was his first VP level role. And it's very human nature to dig in on the things you know and that you're comfortable with, right? And so everybody that wasn't call center customer relations felt like he felt a very particular way about them. It wasn't. He was just still learning that role. And so he dug in, I think, maybe a little too deeply on the things he knew. But it's that kind of thing, because if you understand those dynamics, you can start looking for solutions. And you can start deciding, is this a place I can still grow and thrive, or do I need to make a move?
No, I love that. And I think you make such a good point. I would care to argue in 9 times out of 10 scenarios, no one's got it out for you. No one's intentionally trying to make your life miserable. In reality, they're doing the best they can with what they've got. And you are one of the many direct reports that they have, and they're just trying to figure it all out. And most organizations don't do a great job of equipping their leaders with how to handle being a mid-level manager. And so, yeah, it's not necessarily their fault. They're trying their best. They can be better, but they are not trying to sabotage you as much as maybe you may think so.
Correct.
Yeah. So anyways, Suzanne, this was great. I feel like we covered a lot of ground here. How can our students stay in touch with you over time? Are you okay with them connecting with you on LinkedIn?
Absolutely. It would be my pleasure if they wanted to connect with me on LinkedIn. If any of them have very specific questions, they're welcome to even put it in the comments. I'll read them along with you. And but please grow your network, starting with me. Love to see you guys on LinkedIn.
Amazing. Suzanne, thanks for being here. Students, thank you all for being here. Have a wonderful rest of your day.
Thanks, everyone.